Yo guys, what is up? It is James. Today I am doing a deck setup for Legendary Death because a lot of you have been asking me to do a gear and deck setup for Legendary Death, so I thought I might go ahead and supply that video today. Now, I've never really stopped a marathon dead in the tracks to do one of these videos, but if you guys want to see more of these, then let me know and I will definitely like stop in the middle of every marathon and just do a gear and deck setup in case you guys want to, copy or mix and match my gear and deck setups. In case you want to make your own legendary, death, ice, whatever. So do let me know if this is something that you want to see in the middle of every marathon, and I will definitely make that happen. But we're going to go ahead and try that out today. So here is the gear and deck setup for Legendary Death. Now first I'm going to show you guys my gear setup with the Aquilin Charioteer Lance, and this is the wand that you get dropped from the Immortals lore pack, and then I'll also show you guys a setup with the Staff of the Flashing Blades, because the Immortals lore pack, like all packs, is RNG and you might not be able to get this one, so I'll show you guys setups with both. But before we get into the overall video, I do want to say that Death, if you know what you're doing, can be very, very fun, because Death, learns Doom, learns Feint, naturally, so you have training points to get other spells, be able to transmute them like Deadly Minotaur and whatnot, and it can be an overall very fun school. Also, I might note that Legendary Death is one of the only schools that gives Legendary Balance the hardest time. I can't really explain it, but because Death doesn't need a mastery to Doom, and because their overtimes already do mass, and you don't need a whole lot of pips to actually beat out lore, because believe it or not, Vampire actually does beat out lore if you have decent stats. I think for those reasons, Death really just kind of counters Balance from first and second. If you're first, you have a very, very good chance at beating a Balance. If you're second, you might have to make a couple of good plays, you might have to crit once, but it shouldn't be too hard. But yeah, Death is one of the only schools that actually gives Balance like the hardest time when Balance is trying to win, or when versing a good Balance. It's really hard for them. But that's that. So the gear setup for the Immortals lore pack wand. The Waterworks hood, which is from Waterworks. The robe is the Waterworks robe. Boots are the Glendemming's boots. If you don't have these, then just run the Hangman's. They're not too much different, rather than like aside from the resist, but you get health and incoming and whatnot in case you want to sacrifice. The wand is the Immortals lore pack wand. The Athame is the Duelist Athame. Now I recommend, if you aren't going to, or if you don't have the Duelist Athame, there are level 56 Athames and rings in the bazaar for every school, and they're pretty much almost always in there. They cost a lot, but they're really good in stats for starting out. So if you do not have the Duelist Athame and ring, then definitely go to the bazaar and buy one or buy both for like 40k, I think. Like one's 20 something k and the other's like 16 something k, so pretty much like 40k in total. But they're really, really good starting out to do tournaments and whatnot to get these. So if you don't already have these, then just run to the bazaar and get those. They're really, really good. So the amulet comes from the lower zigzag dungeon. The last boss drops this. Now there is one better than this, but I don't think it gives a blade. It does give damage, it gives like a bit more health, but it doesn't have a tier socket, I believe. So I just run with this one because it gives damage, decent health. It gives a tier socket, so I can pretty much have the same amount of health that the better one gives, and I also have a square socket. So yeah, this one drops from the last boss in the lower zigzag dungeon. The ring, same thing. If you don't have this, then the bazaar bot one is like really, really good. It gives, I think, more damage than this actually. So that's that. My pet is triple double crit. Triple damage, double resist, critical. Now the reason why I am okay with having critical on my Death pet is because when Death crits, it does mass. I'm not gonna lie. When Balance crits, lore is doing like 1.3. Normally it's doing like 900, 1000. When Death crits, oh man, the first hit of Bone Dragon does like 700, 800, and the overtime's doing 900 to 1000. It's, well, I mean, assuming you have at least a blade and an infat on, or at least like a blade up, Bone Dragon does mass. So if you crit on a Death spell, I mean, you're in luck. You're probably gonna win the match unless they crit a heal, or predict. So Yeah, and deadly minotaurs, they also do mass. If you double blade a deadly mino and you crit, I mean, that's the game right there, pretty much. So critical on death pets, not too bad. That's why I'm okay with that. The amount that I am running, in case you want to go for it, is from the Gulcher's Horde pack. It gives 3% damage, so it's a really good mount. And then the deck is farmed from Balosh. Not Belloc, but Balosh. Balosh is a stone key boss that can be found in the House of Scales dungeon. And the deck is pretty rarely dropped, so if you do go for this, have a lot of stone keys, please, and be prepared to lose your mind. Because it might take a while, but there's one of these decks for every school. So if you are, you know, wanting to have the best deck for a legendary pretty much in the entire game, then farm Balosh for your respective school deck. So this is my setup with the Immortal's Lore Pack wand. Now I'm going to show you guys my setup with the Staff of the Flashing Blades. So these are my stats with the Staff of the Flash. You know, decent damage, decent resist, really good accuracy. 40% crit, which is boosted by my pet. 21 block, 12 pierce, really good in and out, and then 94 power percent. So overall, really good stats. Again, if you do not have the Glendemic boots, then just run, you know, Waterworks boots. If I haven't already said that before, then just do that. It's not that much different. I'm actually running for the robe, and by the way, I'm still running the Waterworks hat. But for the robe, if you want to go for this, you don't really have to, but the reason I run it is because it gives more crit and better damage, I guess you can say, and it gives accuracy, I think. Yeah, it does. But if you don't want to run this, then just go for the Waterworks robe. It's not really that big of a difference, but the uniform of the Condemned, the robe that I run for the Staff of the Flashing Blade setup, is dropped from the final boss in the House of Scales dungeon. The same dungeon that you can farm Balosh in, so it's pretty convenient. And you also get stone keys from the final boss in the House of Scales dungeon. So it's a pretty much win-win situation if you are going to be running House of Scales for the House of Scales gear. The House of Scales death hat is also pretty good, but I don't have it, so I can't show you guys the stats. Yeah, I don't have it, so I can't show you guys the stats for that, but it is still a really good hat if you get it. I would mix and match your stats to see what you like. But as of right now, I just run, you know, the Hangman's Hood. It's just what I run naturally. So again, the wand is the Staff of the Flashing Blades. The Athame is, you know, the same thing that I told you guys before. If you don't have this, then just run to the bazaar and buy the level 56 sets for your ring and your Athame. The amulet stays the same. Pet stays the same. Mount and the deck stays the same. So those are my gear setups for Legendary Death. Now I'm going to go ahead and hop into the deck setups. So this is my main deck setup that I use for Legendary Death. If you guys want to pause, then go ahead and do that, and you can mix and match some stuff in case you guys have different cards that you want to use, different strategies. Feel free. This is my TC setup for Legendary Death, which is subject to change, but right now this is what has been working for me at the moment. And I also want to show you guys an alternative deck setup in case you don't want to cram your deck full of cards. Now this is kind of what is known as a control deck. Basically, it has all your necessities. You know, your deck isn't clogged. This deck is normally run for, you know, matches that you just want to have complete control over your deck. You know exactly what you want to do, and that is to kill your opponent as quick as possible. So as you'll notice, you have a bunch of dooms in case you need to shut down for bubble changes. It's only 2 pips. It's very, very good. You know, you have your stun blocks, you know, 3 in if you want to add 4. These are mainly for myths and balances who want to, you know, shield, stun into something better. Or if they have like 1 pip, then they might stun you into a lore, which can be pretty clutch. So you want to have, you know, at least 3 in. Your sacrifices are in here because I do have death shields, and you get these for free. So you do want to, you know, have at least 3 in and at least 3 stacks in, because they can be pretty clutch. If you can buy yourself 2 rounds without getting, you know, beaten, then you can death shield, and then you can sacrifice, and it's actually really, really good. So that's that. You have your skeletal pirates in here that do mass damage, your wraiths in case you have 6 pips and don't fail pip, and you know, 500 base and get your health back. Vampires, very, very good. Vampire actually beats out lore. It's 350 base. Enchanted, it's doing like 800, you know, 700. If you crit, it's doing even more. Vampire is actually one of the only cards in the game that beats out Lore. So, you know, it's 4 for 4 pips. If you don't end up fizzing the Vampire, then it eventually, yeah, it does beat out Lore. So that's something that you guys should know. And then Feints, Death Blades, you want to have these because if you can't pull them like first, second, or third round, you might be in trouble. And then, yeah, everything else is self-explanatory. 2 reshuffles because I don't reshuffle a lot, but 2 reshuffles is good for an offensive setup. And then my TC setup, I don't really have anything for this deck, but if you guys wanted a TC setup for a control deck, basically I would just put like 5 tower shields in. I would put 5 infouls, maybe 2 feints. I would roll with 3 skeletal dragons, 2 Vaughns, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vampires. And then the rest you guys can just make up, put like weaknesses in. You can put enchanted poisons. Ghouls are also really good. I would keep like 4 in, and maybe some dooms. But overall, yeah, this deck is a control deck. It's very, very good. I might start running a form of this in the future, but with a mastery strategy, like a myth master strategy, because I have an idea for a very OP strat that I can go for that not many people expect, and that my friend was also telling me about the other day. But this is a control deck, so if you want to run this deck or my other deck, then feel free to. Also feel free to change them up and whatnot, but this is the main deck that I use for PvP and have been using in the ranked videos. So that is going to be it for today, guys. I'm pretty sure I covered everything. One more thing, if you are wanting to do Legendary Death, do all of your training point quests and train into Myth right here. Because you want to get Minotaur. Now, the reason you want Minotaur is because if you have the normal Minotaur spell trained, then you can buy TC transmutes, which are right here, and you can transmute Deadly Minotaur, which you can put in your TC deck, and they do a lot. And they're, you know, it's just overall a very good card, and balances do not expect it. So, yeah, the only downside to Deadly Minotaur is that it has 80% accuracy, whereas every other card has 85, which is why you want to have at least 20 accuracy or more base, so that you do 100% on the card if you don't have infall up. But other than that, that's gonna wrap it up for the video. So again, if you guys want to see this type of video done in the middle of every marathon, let me know. But for now, this is going to be James giving you all the sign off. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.